In the heart of the dense, whispering forest, miles away from the nearest hint of civilization, a group of friends embarked on a camping trip to escape the relentless pace of city life. They sought solace in nature, camaraderie around the campfire, and the thrill of stories told under the vast starlit sky. This group, consisting of Alex, Jamie, Sam, and Casey, found the perfect clearing, secluded and serene, for their weekend retreat. As night descended, a chilling breeze rustled through the leaves, carrying an eerie silence that enveloped the woods. Around the crackling fire, with the glow casting shadows that danced among the trees, they began to share tales of folklore and urban legends. The mood was light, filled with laughter and the comforting sound of the fire. But as the night grew deeper, the stories took a darker turn, echoing the sinister energy that seemed to seep from the forest itself. Alex, who had a penchant for the supernatural, recounted a local legend about a spirit that haunted these woods, a remnant of a tragedy long past. The spirit, known as the Watcher in the Woods, was said to be that of a camper who had vanished without a trace, forever searching for others to join him in his eternal, wandering misery. The friends chuckled nervously, dismissing it as just another campfire tale meant to spook and entertain. Yet, as the night progressed, an unsettling feeling began to take root, a sensation of being observed from the darkness beyond the firelight. In an attempt to lighten the mood, they decided to embark on a midnight hike, a chance to explore the nocturnal beauty of the forest. Equipped with flashlights and a sense of adventure, they set off into the darkness, the beam of their lights cutting through the thick, oppressive blackness. The forest was alive with sounds, the rustling of leaves, and the distant call of night creatures. Yet, amidst these natural symphonies, a peculiar noise began to emerge, a soft, almost mournful whistling drifting through the trees. Curiosity mingled with fear. They followed the sound, drawn deeper into the labyrinth of ancient woods. The trees seemed to close in around them, and the path they had been following faded into the underbrush, leaving them disoriented and lost. The whistling grew louder, a haunting melody that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. Panic set in as they realized they were not alone. Shadows moved just beyond the reach of their lights, fleeting glimpses of something or someone watching. The realization hit them like a cold wave. The legend of the Watcher wasn't just a story. They were being hunted, lured away from the safety of their camp and into the depths of the forest. In a desperate bid for escape, they retraced their steps, the whistling now a mocking soundtrack to their frantic flight. Branches tore at their clothes, and roots threatened to trip them at every turn. Just when hope seemed lost, the campfire's glow emerged through the trees, a beacon guiding them back to safety. Breathless and shaken, they huddled around the fire, the warmth doing little to chase away the cold dread that clung to them. They spoke in hushed tones, questioning if what they had experienced was real or a trick of the mind, a shared hallucination fueled by the night's eerie tales. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the forest transformed once more into a place of beauty. The terror of the night seemingly a distant memory, but the relief was short-lived. Near the edge of their clearing, etched into the dirt, were footprints too large to be human, encircling their campsite in a silent testament to the night's horrors. The friends packed up with haste, the excitement of their adventure replaced with a desperate need to leave the forest's secrets behind. They spoke little as they made their way back to civilization, each lost in their thoughts, wrestling with the reality of their experience. The story of their encounter with the Watcher in the woods would be told and retold, a cautionary tale of curiosity and the unknown dangers that lurk in the dark. But as they left the forest behind, one thing became clear. The woods were far from done with them, for in the heart of those ancient trees, something had awakened. A hunger for the souls, brave or foolish enough to tread its paths. And so, the legend grows, waiting for the next unwary campers to step into the embrace of the forest, where the Watcher lies in wait, whistling his mournful tune. Months had passed since the harrowing encounter in the woods, and life had seemingly returned to normal for Alex, Jamie, Sam, and Casey. The memories of that night lingered like a bad dream, gradually fading as the demands of their daily lives took precedence. However, an undercurrent of unease remained, a subtle reminder that some experiences were too profound to be completely forgotten. As autumn arrived, bringing with it the chill of coming winter and the promise of Halloween, the friends found themselves drawn together once more. They met at a cozy cafe in the heart of the city, surrounded by the comforting buzz of familiar life. Yet, as they shared stories and laughter, an unspoken agreement hung in the air. They would not discuss that night. It was as if by ignoring it, they could deny its power over them. The evening wore on, and the conversation turned to plans for Halloween. Parties, costumes, and the usual festivities were discussed, but none seemed to spark much interest. It was then that Casey, whose curiosity had always bordered on the reckless, suggested a return to the forest. 1 year later, she said, to see if it was all as we remember. A test of courage. The idea was met with a mix of emotions, fear, disbelief, and an undeniable thrill. Despite their reservations, a plan began to take shape. They would return to the same clearing, armed with more than just flashlights this time. Cameras, recording devices, and even a few makeshift weapons were on the list. They intended to document their experience, to prove to themselves, and perhaps to the world, that what they had encountered was real, or to dispel it as a product of their imaginations. The day arrived, and they set out under a sky painted with clouds, the air crisp and carrying the scent of impending rain. The forest welcomed them back with an unsettling silence, as if the natural sounds had been muted by an unseen hand. They found the clearing with ease, a familiarity that chilled them to the bone. Setting up camp with a practiced efficiency, they prepared for the night ahead. As darkness enveloped the forest once again, they gathered around the campfire, the comforting ritual taking on a ceremonial feel. They were not just campers this time. They were seekers, hunters on the trail of their own fears. The cameras were positioned, the recorders turned on, and they waited. The night deepened, and an oppressive sense of anticipation settled over the clearing. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to shatter the stillness. Then, as if on cue, the whistling began, soft and distant at first. It grew in volume, a mournful melody that seemed to speak directly to their souls. This time, however, they were not paralyzed by fear. They moved toward the sound, a united front against the darkness. What they found, or perhaps what found them, was beyond anything they could have anticipated. The cameras captured it all. The shifting shadows that seemed to coalesce into a figure. The cold spots in the air that followed their movements. The disembodied whispers that filled their ears with words just beyond understanding. And then chaos. The night erupted into a frenzy of activity. Shadows darted just beyond the reach of their lights. The ground beneath their feet seemed to shift, and the whistling encompassed them. A physical force that drove them to their knees. In the midst of the pandemonium, they realized too late that they were not alone. Other figures emerged from the darkness, drawn by the spectacle, or perhaps by something deeper, a connection to the land and its hidden secrets. These were not spirits or phantoms, but people, their faces obscured by masks and cloaks, participants in a ritual that the friends had unwittingly disrupted. The confrontation was brief but intense, a clash of wills and fears. Words were exchanged, threats and warnings, the content of which would haunt them in the days to come. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The figures retreated into the forest, leaving the friends shaken, surrounded by the wreckage of their camp. As they made their way back to the city in the early hours of the morning, the recordings secure among their belongings, they knew that what had started as a quest for answers had become something far more complex. They had peeled back a layer of reality, revealing a world that existed alongside their own, a world governed by ancient rites and shadowy figures. The recordings would be analyzed, debated, and eventually shared, becoming part of the lore of the woods. But for Alex, Jamie, Sam, and Casey, the experience was a reminder that some mysteries are best left unexplored, and some legends are rooted in truths too dark to fully understand. As they resumed their lives, the sense of unease that had followed them since that first camping trip grew stronger. The whistling, the shadows, the masked figures, they were now part of their story, a chapter that had yet to reach its conclusion. The friends tried to return to their routines, to find solace in the normalcy of daily life. But the events of that Halloween night had irrevocably changed them. They carried the weight of the unknown, a burden that manifested in restless nights, whispered conversations, and a constant, nagging feeling of being watched. Weeks turned into months, and the initial fervor that surrounded their story began to fade from public interest. Yet, the more the world moved on, the more they felt trapped in a liminal space, caught between reality and a nightmare that refused to end. Their attempts to discuss their experiences were met with skepticism, or worse, fervent curiosity that threatened to draw more unwitting souls into the forest's embrace. As the anniversary of their first encounter approached, each friend felt a pull towards the woods, an inexplicable longing that bordered on obsession. It was as if the forest itself was calling to them, beckoning them back to complete an unfinished saga. Despite their fears, a plan began to form. One last journey to confront whatever awaited them in the darkness. This time, they would not go unprepared. They delved into research, seeking out experts in the paranormal, historians familiar with the land's dark past, and even contacting those mysterious figures who had appeared that Halloween night. Each encounter offered pieces of a puzzle that, when assembled, painted a picture of ancient rituals bound to the cycle of the seasons, and a guardian spirit that protected the forest's secrets. Determined to face their fears and find closure, they set a date for their return. The night they chose was significant, the spring equinox, a time of balance when day and night are equal, and the veil between worlds is thin. They approached the forest with a mix of dread and determination, armed not just with technology, but with knowledge and a respect for the powers they were dealing with. As they entered the clearing, it was clear that this night would be different. The air was charged with energy, the forest alive with whispered voices and the sense of anticipation. They set up their equipment, forming a circle around the campfire, a symbolic barrier against the darkness. The ritual they had planned was simple, a request for permission to share the forest's secrets and an offer of respect to the spirits that dwelled within. As they began, the fire seemed to burn brighter, casting long shadows that danced around them. The atmosphere changed, the weight of expectation growing heavier with each passing moment. Then, without warning, the clearing was bathed in moonlight, a brilliant silver that seemed to emerge from nowhere. Figures stepped out from the trees, the same masked individuals as before, but this time they approached with a sense of purpose. A silent agreement had been reached. This meeting was meant to be. The leader of the masked group, a figure taller than the rest, stepped forward. In their hand, they held an ancient artifact, its purpose and origin unknown to the friends, but radiating a power that was undeniable. They spoke of the forest's history, of the balance between humanity and nature, and of the responsibility that came with such knowledge. As the night progressed, the friends were initiated into the mysteries of the forest, each revelation more astounding than the last. They learned of the Watcher, not a malevolent spirit, but a protector, one who guided the lost and guarded against those who would do harm to the sacred woods. As dawn approached, the ritual came to an end, and the figures vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared. The friends were left alone in the clearing, the silence of the early morning surrounding them. They packed up their belongings, the artifact now in their possession, a tangible link to the night's incredible events. As they left the forest, the sun rising to herald the new day, they knew that their story was far from over. They had become part of something much larger, guardians of a secret that bridged the world of the living and the realm of spirits. The forest had changed them, and in return, they had pledged to protect its mysteries. But as they returned to the world outside, questions remained. What were the full implications of their new roles? How would this knowledge affect their lives moving forward? And what other secrets did the forest hold, waiting to be discovered? The story of the Watcher in the Woods and the friends who sought its truth was far from concluded. The forest watches, bides its time for the next chapter to begin, had ended, but left the pages blank for what was yet to come. The whispers in the wind, the feeling of being watched, even in the crowded streets of the city, hinted at an unseen presence, a thread connecting them back to the forest and its secrets. In the weeks that followed, each of them experienced strange occurrences that could not be easily dismissed. Photos with unexplainable shadows, electronic devices turning on and off without reason, dreams of the forest so vivid they left physical marks upon waking. It was as if the forest, or whatever dwelled within it, had claimed a piece of them, a tether that pulled at their consciousness, urging them back. Conversations among the group became frequent, driven by a need to understand and, perhaps, to confront what they had encountered. They researched the history of the forest, delving into archives and local folklore, uncovering tales of ancient rituals, disappearances, and a cult that worshipped the primal forces of nature, seeking communion with entities beyond human comprehension. Their investigation led them to an old, forgotten book in a dusty library corner, its pages filled with arcane symbols and rituals, one of which mirrored the events they had witnessed in the forest. The realization was chilling. Had they been part of a ritual, actors in a drama older than the trees that had surrounded them? The pull of the forest grew stronger, an obsession that consumed their thoughts. They began to see the symbols from the book everywhere, patterns in the chaos of daily life, messages hidden in plain sight. The line between reality and madness blurred as they struggled to maintain their grasp on the world they knew. Determined to find closure, they planned a final trip to the forest, equipped with newfound knowledge and a desperate hope to sever the connection that had been forged. This time, their approach was methodical. Each step, each action grounded in the rituals described in the ancient tome. They would confront the Watchers in the woods, demand answers, and, if necessary, perform a counter-ritual to break the bond. As they entered the forest, the atmosphere shifted, the air thick with anticipation. The familiar path to their clearing was gone, replaced by a maze of thorns and mist, a landscape that seemed to change with each step. time lost meaning as they navigated the shifting terrain, guided by an unseen force toward a destination that remained elusive. Night fell, a darkness so complete it seemed to swallow the light from their torches. And then, in the heart of the forest, they found it, a clearing they had never seen before, a circle of ancient stones that pulsed with an eerie light. Figures emerged from the shadows, the same masked entities they had encountered before. But this time, they were not alone. A presence, ancient and immense, watched from the darkness, its gaze penetrating their souls. The ritual began, a dance of light and shadow, as the friends used every piece of knowledge they had acquired to challenge the forces they faced. Words of power were spoken, symbols drawn in the air, a battle of wills that stretched the fabric of reality. And then, amidst the chaos, a moment of clarity. The connection that had tormented them was not a curse, but a gift, an invitation to a world that few had ever glimpsed. The forest, the rituals, the Watchers all were part of a tapestry of existence far more complex than they had imagined. As dawn approached, the confrontation reached its climax. A choice was presented, a crossroads that would determine their fates: to step beyond the veil, to join the Watchers, to embrace the unknown, or to return to their world, carrying the burden of what they had learned, forever changed by their journey into the darkness. The decision hung in the air, a question that demanded an answer. And as the first light of dawn pierced the darkness of the forest, the friends faced their destiny, ready to make the choice that would define their lives forever. The story of their final night in the forest, the outcome of their choice, remains shrouded in mystery, a tale waiting to be continued. In the delicate light of dawn, with the shadows of the forest retreating like the tide, Alex, Jamie, Sam, and Casey stood at the precipice of an unseen world, their hearts heavy with decision. The entities that had once haunted their steps now awaited their choice, silent observers to a moment that would transcend time. As they deliberated, a profound understanding settled over them. Their experiences, once sources of fear and confusion, had woven them into the fabric of a story much greater than themselves. They realized they stood not as victims, but as participants in an ancient and ongoing dialogue between humanity and the mysteries that lay beyond the veil of the known world. The decision was made. Words of acceptance whispered into the cool morning air, an agreement sealed with an exchange of glances that spoke of courage and the bond of friendship. As they voiced their choice, the air around them shimmered with a light unseen, a gateway opening to possibilities untold. But before they could step forward, a sudden disturbance pierced the tranquility of the moment. From the edge of the clearing, a new figure emerged, one not clad in the ceremonial garb of the forest watchers, but in the familiar guise of the modern world. The figure, a woman with an aura of authority and deep knowledge, carried herself with a purpose that halted the proceedings. She introduced herself as Alara, a keeper of balance between the realms, a mediator between the ancient and the modern. Her arrival was no coincidence. It was a response to the unfolding events, a countermeasure to maintain the equilibrium that had been threatened by the friends' deep plunge into the forest's secrets. Ilara revealed that their journey, while unique, was part of a larger pattern, a cycle of interaction between humans and the supernatural that required careful oversight. The choice they were about to make, she explained, had implications far beyond their understanding, capable of disrupting the delicate balance that had been preserved for centuries. The revelation was a shock, casting their experiences in a new light. The forest, the watchers, the rituals, all were elements of a complex ecosystem of power, with rules and consequences they had barely begun to comprehend. Ilara offered them an alternative, a way to engage with the mysteries they had uncovered without unraveling the threads that held the world together. She spoke of a path that would allow them to explore the depths of the unknown while serving as guardians of the balance, a role that would require sacrifice, but also grant insights into the nature of reality itself. As they listened, the friends realized that their story was far from over. It was evolving into a new chapter, one filled with purpose and the promise of understanding the unseen forces that shape our world. They accepted Ilara's offer, stepping into roles that would forever change them, bridging the gap between the ordinary and the extraordinary. And so, they left the forest not as they had entered, but as keepers of its secrets, custodians of a balance they had once threatened. The watchers, silent until now, nodded their approval, fading into the forest as the first rays of sunlight warmed the clearing. But questions remained, seeds of curiosity and doubt planted in their minds. What other mysteries lay hidden in the world's dark corners? How many others walked the line between the known and the unknown, unseen guardians of the balance? Their journey had begun as a search for adventure, a tale of friends lost in the woods, but it had transformed into something much greater, a story of discovery, responsibility, and the endless quest for knowledge. As they made their way back to the world they knew, the forest behind them seemed to whisper a farewell, a reminder that they were now part of something ancient, a narrative that stretched back into the mists of time. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and the promise of revelations yet to come. The story of Alex, Jamie, Sam, Casey, and now Ilara was a thread in a larger tapestry, a tale that was far from finished, ready to be continued in the hearts and minds of those willing to listen and explore the shadows where truths wait to be discovered. The whispers in the woods had not ceased. They had merely changed their tune, calling out for the next chapter to be written, for the journey to continue wherever curiosity dared to tread.